Welcome to this week's version of Nickels and Dimes, our weekly video series. Well, today I'm going to talk about something that, in my opinion, is quite eye-opening, that might surprise you. So today's topic, should you own gold, Bitcoin, or both? And by the way, if you find value in this video, if you're seeing it on social media, Facebook or LinkedIn, go ahead and share it. Or if you get it in an email, go ahead and forward to a friend. So let's jump in and explore. So how has gold performed, for example, versus the S&P 500 over the last 25 years? This is something that might surprise you. In fact, gold, according to the compounded annual growth rate, that's what is highlighted in the upper left here, gold has actually outpaced, meaning had a better return over the last 25 years than the S&P 500. Gold up around 9% annualized, and US stocks, i.e. the S&P 500, have averaged around 8%. Interestingly enough, this might be a surprise to you. Now, most people own in their traditional portfolio like something like an S&P 500 index fund, or maybe a mid-cap stock fund or a small-cap stock fund. Most people, when they have a 401k and IRA, they're investing likely in stocks or stock-like funds. Other folks, of course, have bonds in a combination of the stock and bond traditional asset allocation portfolio. Some folks have exposure to gold, and my suspicion is most do not. Some have gold in the form of an ETF. Some have gold in the form of actual hard metal, whether it's a coin or gold bars. But we get sometimes these types of questions. Should I invest in gold? Should I invest in the S&P 500? Again, interesting. The last 25 years, gold has done better on average, annualized versus the S&P. But what about another investment that might surprise you? How does gold compare to the S&P 500 compared to Bitcoin over the last 15 years? The previous information we looked at was over a 25-year period. This is now 15 years. Maybe a surprise to some of you, probably not a surprise to many. Bitcoin has been a terrific investment over the last 15 years. It's, by the way, just past its 15-year birthday. Happy birthday to Bitcoin. It is 15 years old. You could see how it has done relative to gold and the S&P. Over the last year, it's up over 100%. Over the last 3 years, it's up over 30% versus the S&P up 8%. Over the last 10, Bitcoin's averaged 85% a year over the last 10 years. This is insane. If you're not paying attention, the S&P has done well, just over 10%. Now you might be wondering, what should I do? Should I allocate some money to Bitcoin? Should I allocate some money to gold? Again, you likely have, like most folks, money already in the S&P or stock market type investments. Here's my 2 cents. If you have a willingness to take some risk, if you can stomach the volatility that often comes with investing in Bitcoin or even gold, because remember, what I'm not showing here is the down years. Many of the downturns, and they could happen quite quickly, you might see a downturn of 30, 40, or even 50% from peak to trough. So with a great return often comes greater risk and greater volatility. So if you have an interest in investing in Bitcoin, again, have a willingness to take additional risks. Now you might say, how much should I do? My simple answer is whatever amount you're comfortable with, whether it's a dollar amount or a percentage of the portfolio. You also might consider, there's two forms or two ways to own it. Essentially, you could buy an ETF, kind of like what you could buy the S&P 500 in the form of an ETF to track the S&P 500 stocks. You could also own gold in the form of an ETF, which tracks the price of gold. But you could also, there's a number of Bitcoin ETFs you could buy that way. My recommendation, though, is if you are going to buy Bitcoin or even gold, you buy the real thing, meaning go to a crypto exchange like Coinbase and buy Bitcoin directly. If you want to buy gold, my opinion, again, buy gold coins or a bar. I'd rather you own them in their, let's call it hard form, versus a paper asset like an ETF. I hope that made some sense. If not, you can certainly send me an email at cnichols@nicholswealth.com. So hopefully we provided some value in this conversation today. Again, it was quite eye-opening how gold compared to Bitcoin, how it also compared, of course, to the S&P 500. The point of the matter is, if you do have an interest in allocating some money to Bitcoin or gold, Just make sure you understand what you're doing. Make sure you're comfortable with the allocation and understand, of course, your risk tolerance. That is very important. That is all to say is if you like this video, as I mentioned earlier, if you see it on social media, Facebook or LinkedIn, go ahead and share it. Or if you get it in an email, go ahead and forward to a friend. To that end, if you would like a second opinion on your portfolio or financial situation, this is our website at nicholswealth.com. Click on the upper right-hand tab, fill out this request an appointment information, and one of our advisors will reach out to you and answer your questions and give you some clarity on today's challenging but potentially rewarding financial environment. Thanks again for watching. Bye-bye.